Joshua chapter 4, verse 14 to 24. It's a little long, so I'm going to read it quickly, okay? That day, the Lord exalted Joshua in the sight of all Israel, and they revered him all the days of his life, just as they had revered Moses. Then the Lord said to Joshua, command the priest carrying the ark of the testimony to come up out of the Jordan. So Joshua commanded the priest, come up out of the Jordan. And the priest came up out of the river, carrying the ark of the covenant of the Lord. So no sooner had they set their feet on the dry ground than the waters of the Jordan returned to their place and ran at flood stage as before. On the 10th day of the first month, the people went up from the Jordan and camped at Gilgal on the eastern border of Jericho. And Joshua set up at Gilgal the 12 stones they had taken out of the Jordan. He said to the Israelites, in the future, when your descendants ask their fathers, what do these stones mean? Tell them, Israel crossed the Jordan on dry ground. For the Lord your God dried up the Jordan before you until you had crossed over. The Lord your God did to the Jordan just what he did done to the Red Sea when he dried it up before us until he had crossed over. He did this so that all the peoples of earth might know that the hand of the Lord is powerful, and so that you might always fear the Lord your God. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Today I want to talk about the Joshua, and with the title, "The Stones at Gilgal." Okay, as a McChain reading we are going through these days, we just start reading book of Joshua. So I want to share with Joshua. I want to give some introduction about Joshua to you. Joshua, the book of Joshua is the sixth book of the Old Testament. First five books, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, we call the Torah or Pentateuch. And this is, the story that, the Pentateuch and Moses, Exodus, and the journey, 40 years journey through the desert. And at the end of the fifth book, Deuteronomy, Moses gave his last sermon before he crossed the Jordan without going into the promised land, Canaan, and Moses died. So Joshua, book of Joshua, is now a story that the Israelites who came out of Egypt, who went through 40 years journey through the desert, now they're about to go into the promised land. And they are landed for 40 years. There are many people who are living, many tribes. Now there are war between these two people, Israel and all the people in the land. So it's actually the chronicle of the wars and battles. And that's the book of Joshua. There's a lot of fighting story there, and how the Israelites conquered their promised land and settled down. That's the book of Joshua. And the Joshua, the person, you can see story about him in Numbers chapter 14. While they're still in the desert, Moses sent the 12 leaders, one from each tribe, to explore the promised land. And then they all came back with the bad news, saying that the enemy is too strong, residents, inhabitants are too powerful, we cannot go there. And these, the leaders discouraged the people to go up, but only two people, you might know, Caleb and Joshua, they were a faithful person, and they said, even if the enemy is strong, God is with us, and if God is with us, we can conquer the land, let's go up. And they, were righteous people. And as a result, everybody 40 years up, they all died in the desert during the trip, but only these two people, Caleb and Joshua, could go into the land. And that one of them, Joshua, now is a leader, and he is the main person in the book of Joshua. That's a book of Joshua. And main content and theme of book of Joshua, as I just said, is a conquering story to settle down in the land. But first theme, there's two main themes in book of Joshua. And first one is be strong and courageous. God tells Joshua many times, have I not commanded you? Joshua chapter 1 verse 9, be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And this, the be strong and courageous is repeated again and again. And there's enough reason why God told this to Joshua, because Joshua was not like Moses. Moses was a charismatic leader who was prince of Egypt, who divided the sea into two, the Red Sea, and went to the mountain Sinai, received the 10 Commandments, and he's the one who saw God face to face, right? The charismatic leader Moses just died. And the new leader, have the great leader, always have a lot of burden, political and spiritual burden. So Joshua was kind of terrified to take over the great man of God, the Moses position. And also, Moses' role was more like leading people throughout the desert. But now Joshua should have a battle with the numerous people, with the multiple tribes, and he's a military campaign leader. So for most important thing for his life, for his mission, is be strong and courageous as the leader who should lead the people to the land, right? So the be strong and courageous is the first main theme of the book of Joshua. About I think 2007 and 2008, when I was in the Downeyville, that was BBS theme was actually Joshua chapter 1 verse 9, be strong and be courageous. And a lot of it's a countryside Caucasian church, and a lot of older folks there, and young pastor had to lead BBS at that time. So I'm the good BBS, the worship dance teacher and youth pastor for a long time. So I led the BBS song, theme song to the town, the village children, and offered the BBS. And whenever we offer the BBS song, like we need to practice like 50 times, and before children, you need to keep dancing, and the music come up, my body already start dancing, right? And anyway, the be strong and courageous, such a good theme. And whenever I read this verse, that memory come up, and memory and my body already start feeling the song and start dancing. What's coming next, right? I'm going to show you very shortly, okay? But it's not for my dance, but for you to remember this theme. Be strong and be courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged. Okay? Let's see that. This is like a BBS song. I was much better 20 years ago, but anyway, hopefully that you remember this theme, this music. Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged, okay? This is such a theme that which can apply to us too, because as a Christian, whether we are Christian or non-Christian, things happen. It's not like a bad thing happened to all the non-Christian, a good thing happened to Christian. No. Bad thing, good thing happen to the Christian and non-Christian. But difference of a Christian, the way we respond to the bad things must be different, right? Because we live with God. We believe God is the host. God is the owner of the history and our life. And when bad thing happen, we see the God beyond that, right? That God is with us and God take care of us. So when some struggle happen, when accident happen, we heard the bad news, there's God in our life. Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged for the people, like a people in the world. But as a Christian who live with God, who believe God is in your life, you should respond differently. Be strong and courageous. Okay? So that's the first main theme of book of Joshua, which also we should remember on every day in our life. Second theme of the book of Joshua actually come at the end of the book of Joshua. So now the beginning of the book of Joshua, the one who's supposed to go for battle, a military campaign, be strong and courageous. You go to the world, go to your life, Be courageous and be strong and be courageous. And at the end of the book of Joshua, when they all conquered the land, now Joshua's last word to the people is in Joshua chapter 24. And you know the very famous theme, as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. I believe you have heard about this, right? So Joshua chapter 29, verse 14 says like this, now fear the Lord. And now this is what Joshua telling the people. Now fear the Lord and serve him with all faithfulness. Throw away the gods your forefathers worshipped beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourselves this day from whom you will serve, whether the gods your forefathers served beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorite in whose land you are living. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. So the situation now is Joshua had to be strong and courageous and led the people for the conquering the land. And then when they conquered the land, the problem was not enemy, but Israel themselves. They now start following the tradition and costume of the people of the land. They did not, forsake God, but they worshipped the God as their people, as the local people worshipped, and they worshipped the God, and they worshipped also the local gods. So they were not faithful to God. And in that situation, when people live like the local people, now Joshua brought up, you choose whatever way you choose, and then you choose the God beyond the river or even this land, but me and my household will serve the Lord. And this is another very important message, especially to us who live in 21st century, because the world we live, the world that surrounds us, it's the same circumstance. The biggest challenge for Christians is just we like the people, we like the people in the world. There's no distinction between Christians and people in the world. And, it's not like we do not believe in God, but like in our heart, the main standard, the center of our heart, money, success, study, and sports, that become our idol. Right? And then Sunday, when we should show our honor to God, when we should the day separate from the rest of the day, and the offering we should separate for the Lord, and we just mix everything, right? That we do not honor God, and we do not give a proper worship to God, and we just follow the way of this world, just reasonable, it's okay, right? And for that kind of circumstance, this voice of Joshua, this Joshua's teaching should come in our heart as whatever other people do. People say that's okay, that's reasonable. But no, as for me and my household, we'll be very strong, we'll be sure, we will serve the Lord alone, and it become very important message in our life. So again, two important themes in book of Joshua. As a Christian who live with God, do not respond as a people of the world respond to all the situation in your life. Be strong and courageous, trusting God in your life. And also, be faithful and pure in your religion, in your faith to God. Serve only the Lord. Do not, serve something else with God. Whatever it is, whether it's good, either family, children, against job or success or whatever, you should not serve them with God. You and your household. Be sure that God is the most important one. God is the owner of your life and master of your life, and you serve the Lord. Be sure about that. These two messages that we can bring up as the main two themes in the beginning and ending of the book of Joshua. And there's something that I want to also we think about. First theme, be strong and courageous. It's not what Joshua said. It's not what Joshua told to people. It was what Joshua heard. That be strong and courageous was given to Joshua. And actually, it's God told Joshua, be strong and courageous. This is the most important in your life. I'm giving you this word. You receive this message. And actually, God giving this message to Joshua multiple times in the book of Joshua, and even through the different people. Joshua heard this from everybody. The Deuteronomy chapter 31, while Moses is still alive, Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 7. Then Moses summoned Joshua and said to him in the presence of all Israel, be strong and courageous. Again, be strong and courageous, for you must go with the people into the land that the Lord swore to their forefathers to give them, and you must divide it among them as their inheritance. The Lord himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. Now you also dancing with me and then singing this song, right? Moses told Joshua what Joshua had to listen. And God said multiple times Joshua, same thing. And also if you see Joshua chapter 1 verse 16, people, even the people of Israel, they repeat that too. Chapter 1 verse 16, then they answered Joshua. That means the people of the Israelite, they answered Joshua, whoever you have commanded us, we will do. And wherever you send us, we will go. Just as we fully obey Moses, so we will obey you. Only may the Lord your God be with you as he was with Moses. Whoever rebels against your word and does not obey your word, whoever you may command them will be put to death. Only be strong and courageous. Again, the most important thing to Joshua and in his life mission, lead the military campaign of the people. If he failed his life and he failed the whole people Israelite. So he must be sure, be strong and courageous as the leader of the Israelite as they conquer the land. It was given to Joshua. It was not what Joshua found or Joshua empathized. God gave the message to Joshua. And the most important thing in Joshua's life, God gave it to him directly or indirectly through the Moses and the people. And we can think about now the most important thing in our life. What we need to know, what we have to have in our life, they were all given to us. It's not what we made up, what we created. God gave us. God is our creator. God is our father. And as you know, the parents provide and prepare everything for the baby. What they need to listen, what they need to learn, what they need to know, and what they need, parents all provide it. Right? That's what our God did to us. Everything we need to know, God already told us. Directly, through the Bible, through the pastor, or through the friends, or through the life, God taught us. Christians are those who recognize it. Yes, God, everything in my life is a gift from you. The famous passage that we all like, the book of James, the book of James chapter, the 1:17, right? Every good and perfect gift is from above. We like this passage. Every good and perfect gift come from above. Everything we received, good and perfect things, God gave us. Your spouse, your children, your parents, your body, and things you know now, the wisdom you have, your philosophy, your theology, everything. What we need is provided by God, and that's the important message here. Be strong and be courageous, the theme of the book of Joshua. It was given to Joshua who needed it most. Let's again remember that God is the owner. God is the master, Lord of our life, and everything we have, all the good things come from God who provide to us. Let's remember that. Second thing, but me and my people, my household, we believe in God. This is not what God told Joshua. It's not like God said, hey Joshua, you and your household, believe the Lord. That's not what God told Joshua, but this is what Joshua told the people. But as for me means Joshua, as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. What Joshua said, why God provided everything to him, was to recognize it was God who gave everything to him, and to confess God is his Lord and his family's Lord, and understand that truth and to preach it and share it. This is a very important thing that we can, check it out. The thing what you need to do in our life, don't be confused. You're not creating something, doing something great in our life. If we have done something good, it's because that's what God gave us. When you give offering, what's the main philosophy of offering? Everything God gave me ability to earn this money. So all the things that I got, all the harvest I got, is from God's gift, the gift that God gave me ability, so I could have it. So I return some part to God as evidence of my heart that I believe it. Right? So the recognition that everything comes from God, that's what we need to have. And then we need to pass it down. We need to teach it to other people, and we need to be a witness of Jesus Christ. That's a Christian's work. God does important thing in our life, and we recognize and be a witness, give thanks to God. That's the reason, we shared many times the book of Acts, chapter 1:8. If the Holy Spirit comes on you, what are you going to be? You're going to create something, or you kind of accomplish something great? No, you're going to be witness of Jesus Christ. Another 2 Corinthians chapter 1 and 3, it says, chapter 3 and 3, it says, you are the letter of the Christ. It's not like you're the weapon, but you're the letter. Through you, what God has done, what Christ has done, should be preached. That is your role, to understand what God has done in your life. When you talk about Abraham, I hope you remember then, we said that Abraham, the most influential person in whole human history, he was called God's friend. Why was he called God's friend? Because he accomplished something big, or he became a great person in the world during his life? No, he was God's friend because he understood what God has done in his life, and what God is doing in his life. And through him and through his descendant and through the thousands of years of history, what God is doing. And he saw that night that when God told him to sacrifice his son Isaac, Abraham foresaw, this Christ will be born in my family. That he shared, he understood the heavenly knowledge that what God gave him, and that's the reason he was a friend of God. Again, everything in your life, we working hard, but it is God who gave us the ability to do this, and it is God who provided everything. But our job is not busy working, but wow, this is amazing. God, let me do this thing. God has done this thing. We keep think about what our God has done for us and what God is doing, and understand, give thanks to God, and share with other people. That's our job. The first job, live with God, appreciating what God has done for us. And second job is surely we understand and preach other people. In today's passage, how Joshua did this thing, we can actually check it out. The Joshua chapter 37, God gave a promise. So Lord said to Joshua, today I will begin to exhort you in the eyes of all Israel, so they may know that I am with you as I am with Moses. So God gave this promise to Joshua. Amazing that I will exhort to you in the eyes of all Israel. And then the Jordan, when they passed through Jordan River dried up, so they could walk through it. And then right after that, the event. Now God says, chapter 4, verse 14. That day the Lord exhorted Joshua in the sight of all Israel, and they revered him all the days of his life, just as they have revered Moses. So Joshua did not dry up Jordan River. God did it. Everything, every important thing, every great thing Joshua did, it was what God did to him, or God did through him. Then what did Joshua do? And after this event, now Joshua, what he did, when they crossed over the Jordan River, when it was dried up, that each tribe of Israel, they pick up the large big stone, and then they carried it out. And then Joshua chapter 4:19, on the 10th day of the first month of the people went up from the Jordan and camped at the Gilgal at the eastern border of Jericho. Joshua set up at Gilgal the 12 stones they had taken out of the Jordan. That's Joshua's job. Not dried up the river, but set up the stones at Gilgal. And why did he do that? He said to Israelite, in the future, when your descendants ask their fathers, why do these stones mean? Tell them Israel crossed the Jordan on dry ground. For the Lord your God dried up the Jordan before you until you had crossed over. The Lord your God did to Jordan just as what he had done to the Red Sea when it dried up before us until we had crossed over. So Joshua set up the large stone there and then piled up as the evidence, as the sign and memory for teaching their children in the future. Right? When Israel asks, what's happening? Tell surely your children what God has done for us. That's Joshua's job, telling the people it is the Lord who gave everything to them, and the proclaiming, me and my household will serve the Lord. Actually, I wondered if you remember that Joshua chapter 3:7. It's a very memorable, personally important verse to me because when I was 30, I came to the United States when I was 29, and just after 1 year, everything was just confusing, and I wondering that where my life is going, why God brought me to this country, and what's the reason of my life, what's the reason of living this country. I have a lot of questions. And when I was 30, still in a lot of confusion, and I asked God, why did you bring me this country, and what should I do, and what's the purpose of my life? And I opened the Bible, and God gave me this word. Today really, caught my heart. Yeah, today, my birthday, and 30th birthday, that special birthday, now God is telling me, today I will begin to exalt you in the eyes of all Israel, so they may know that I am with you as I was with Moses. I was sure at the time. It was a promise that God gave me. And it was a really honorable, the thing that God told me, I will exalt to you in the eyes of all Israel. That will be your life when you move to this country, right? The sad thing was it didn't happen, right? That was 20 years ago. I was 30. Now I'm almost to 50, right? And to Joshua, it happened right after God gave a promise in chapter 30 and chapter 3 and chapter 4 that through the Jordan event that Joshua was exalted, but it didn't happen to me. So for the last 20 years, slowly I was thinking differently. I didn't doubt that God gave me this promise to that day. It was so clear that I couldn't doubt, but I would start thinking maybe it was just a word of comfort. Because I was terrified living in this country, and God was trying to say comforting word. Or maybe it's more like figuratively God said that. Or maybe exalt me more spiritually, not like before people. When I was young, like 30s, I was ambitious and I was thinking I'll be respected, I'll be exalted, and I'll be known, right? But 20 years, my life was going opposite direction. I believe the countryside, and I'm more like slowly feeling like I'm far away from a person that will be exalted before people. And I start thinking differently. But this word did not disappear. Even if I do not remember often this word because my life is far away from it, as you know, at least as a pastor, I read the Bible once a year, which means at least once a year I had to read through it. Once a year, and more than once a year, I had to read this verse. And when I was 33, 37, 47, 42, I was keep going to read, this verse, special verse that God gave it to me. Today I'll be begin to exalt you in the eyes of all Israel. Yeah, that promise, strangely, still there, though I couldn't understand. Joshua set up stone, the 12 stone after he crossed the river. And I want to focus on stone. Why was stone? Why was not tree? Why didn't build a beautiful shrine there, building the house with a tree? And stone. So I think it's one of all the objects in the world, in earth that which last more than anything. The trees, they are rotten, right? And they are weak at the fire. And metals, they rusted and they weak at the water. But the stone, though it didn't look beautiful like a metal or like the tree, it's maybe just a stone, ugly stone, but it's always there. The stone that Joshua set up, right? What Joshua set up at the mountain, we don't know that how long it lasted there. But anyway, the countries was destroyed, and then tribes have been changed, and new leaders come up, and maybe people passing by those stones, and maybe they would have thought, wow, that glory was there. Like 1,000 years ago, we heard the story that God dried up. Maybe those stones, the sign of the old stories. Even the stories change. History is changing. The people going back and forth. Stone is always there to remind the people what happened. Even if they cannot feel that glory, even if they cannot feel that the miracle, but that story, that the event, what stone represent, it's always there. The God's promise. It is like that. When Joshua set up this stone, like a pile of stone, actually that what Joshua set up, that the photo, it might not be real photo that Joshua built it up, but maybe in the desert, if the pile of 12 stones like this, it make people remember it's always there. I think that is important. God's promise is always in our life. And we are changing and things are different, but it is not changing. The last 20 years, ever since I received the promise of God in Joshua chapter 37, I will exhort you before the people of Israel. I don't think anymore that the people around me will exhort me. That's not even my goal or my dream anymore. But slowly the focus of my life has been changed. Instead of being known, being noticed by other people, now instead of having a good reputation, now I'm thinking about my main thing is, how do I educate my children? How do I raise them as a people of God? How I'm sure that they know that God is also their Lord. So maybe parents can say, "Our children, that I've worked so hard to raise you like this, and then everything that I provide." Maybe they could say like this about like a Christian. How we say, your father, your mother, we were weak. We were not that good enough to raise you like this. But our God, my God, who helped me, supported through my whole life, gave me ability to support you like this. I'm so appreciate you grow up so beautifully, but that's not your work, that's not my work, that's my God's work. And I want to be sure that that you have this God and know this God also in your life. So we want children, we want to teach the children the most important thing in the life, that God is the master, the Lord of our life. And again, during the last 20 years, the beautiful, all the fancy dream of my life all gone. But now I'm start thinking something new. You heard that maybe I'm a first generation Christian and first generation pastor. Maybe the 10 generations pastor after me, I'm expecting it, right? That kinds of a dream. Right? And you know what? I'm praying for my children. And recently I'm started praying for my grandchildren, which I don't have yet. And I'm praying for my great-grandchildren. And I'm blessed my third, fourth, and fifth generation descendant, which I might never be able to see them. But I pray them, God, let my descendant, let my children's children, let my children, my grandchildren's children, let my descendant believe in you, let my household trust you, have you in their life. So from me, I'm first generation Christian, from me, this family, the Christian families, all, the holy legacy passed down to my generations. And when I bless my descendant, like 5th generation and 10th generation, that I even could not imagine, but actually I'm praying for them, I'm giving blessing. And strangely, when I'm praying for them, I believe God is listening my prayer. And God will surely bless my descendant because of me, as God blessed Abraham's descendant because of Abraham, and I'm believing it. Because of stone, it doesn't disappear. I'm not sure the shape of a stone. I'm not sure that the size of a stone. But it just in me, the promise God gave me, and it just go down in my life, and I want to pass it down to my children. There is a stone at Gilgal that Joshua built. Everything is what God has done. I'm just building this stone. Let people remember all the victories of our life is what God gave us. And all the glories and all the survival or prosperity and everything is what God gave us. People, let's remember. Whenever you see this stone, remember them. Me and my family, me and my household, remember this stone throughout generations thousands of years. Let's be sure what we are trying to do. We're not trying to accomplish something great in our life. God is doing it. God surely do something through us. What you need to do is recognize them, understand them, remember them, and teach our children and pass this whole legacy to next generation so they also understand what God has done to their ancestors. And they believe this God as their God, and this holy legacy go down. Let us be a people who set up the stone for generations. It might not be spread out widely to the people around us. Maybe people might not know us, but I start believing now what God gave me promise. You will be exalted by all the people in Israel. Maybe I'll be exalted by all my descendants throughout the generations. Stones is not beautiful, but they last long throughout the time and will be remembered as a people of God who give this whole legacy to our children, and we stand as a stone through our children. Let's pray.